Virgin poor girl accidentally sleeps with a billionaire during a stormy night. A month later, she finds out she's pregnant. Open up! Fire alarm. Everyone out. The hotel door rattled under a fist, strobe lights pulsing red through the crack. Nia Carter jolted upright, lungs full of rain-cooled air, an oversized white dress shirt sticking to her skin. Beside her, a man lay on his side, bare forearm bronzed and powerful, a watch face flashing in the emergency light. She didn't know his last name. She wasn't even sure she knew his first. Water hissed through the ceiling vent. The sprinkler sputtered alive with a cold spray. The stranger blinked awake, reached for her on instinct, then stopped, palms up, steady voice over the siren. "You're okay. Come on." He scooped his wallet and a black metal card from the nightstand. Nia's heart hammered. How did a broke waitress wake up in a boutique hotel, wearing a stranger's shirt, with alarms screaming and security banging? Hours earlier, thunder had shaken Aunt Dee's diner like a passing freight train. Power flickered, died, returned as static. Nia slid the deadbolt after the last customer, counted tips twice, and thought of her mother's inhaler at home, a stubborn little thing that wheezed like Denise herself. When the door chimed again, a tall man stepped in, rain painting his suit a darker blue. He didn't look like meatloaf for $6.99. He looked like decisions and private elevators. "Kitchen's closed," she said, aiming for no nonsense. "Then just shelter," he answered. Lightning drew a white seam across the sky. The transformer outside went off like a flashbang. Street went black. His phone found no bars. Hers neither. "Bus is cancelled," he said, checking an app that wouldn't load. "Let me drive you." "I don't ride with strangers," Nia said, but the wind howled and the windows wobbled in their frames. He didn't push, just waited, calm as a lighthouse. When the rain finally turned the street into a river, she muttered, "Fine." Straight there and back, the highway was a mirror of water. Wipers thrashed. A maple cracked and collapsed 2 lanes ahead. He braked smooth, hands firm at 10 and 2. A neon triangle through the downpour promised refuge. Lakeview Inn. Inside, stranded travelers huddled like a flock. "1 room left," the clerk announced. "Queen bed." "I'll take the chair," the man said immediately. "You can have the bed." "It's just until the storm passes," Nia told herself in the elevator, dripping on the carpet. In the room, the heater coughed and died, then came back wheezing. She peeled off her soaked denim jacket. He turned his back and shrugged out of his suit coat. "You should take the shirt," he said, voice turned away, already unbuttoning. "It's dry." It smelled faintly of cedar and something expensive. She slipped it on, sleeves swallowing her wrists. For a beat, they stood a yard apart, steam curling from their clothes, thunder quilting the windows with sound. They talked to fill the space, the easy kind that happens when the power's gone, and time's made of candlelight. She learned he liked his coffee black and his mornings early. He learned she worked doubles and dreamed of nursing school. She didn't ask what he did. He didn't say. Their words slowed. The room seemed smaller. The storm pressed its palm to the glass. And then, without planning to, they closed the last inch and kissed like people who needed heat more than sense. The sprinklers snapped on near dawn with a hiss and a cold baptism, shocking them apart. "False alarm?" he said, already reaching for her hand. "We should go." Security pounded. Nia's cheeks burned. She grabbed her jeans, his shirt, and her dignity by threads, and they spilled into a stairwell of steam and red pulsing light. By the time the alarms quieted and the hotel unsnarled its lobby from panic, the stranger had found a towel and a moment of quiet. He pressed a folded note and a black card into her damp palm. "In case you need anything," he said, meaning it. The card was heavy as a coin. She stared at the silver letters, his name hidden under the sheen, and closed her fingers around both. "I won't," she said, because pride was the only thing she could afford. When the sun finally lifted the storm off the city, the bed was cold on one side and empty on the other. Nia stood by the window, raindrops knitting the glass, and tore the card in half. The note she kept, though she told herself she didn't know why. Outside, Atlanta steamed and glittered in puddles. She buttoned his shirt to her throat, squared her shoulders, and stepped into the morning like a dare. The sun was merciless the next morning, throwing gold light through the thin curtains of Nia's apartment. Her eyes burned from sleeplessness. The events of the night, the rain, the warmth, the stranger, played like flashes she couldn't erase. She'd folded his shirt neatly on a chair, but his scent still lingered on her skin, a cruel reminder that her real life had no room for dreams like him. Her mother's voice rasped from the next room. "Nia, baby, that you?" Nia hurried in. Denise Carter, wrapped in a quilt, wheezed into her inhaler. The canister hissed empty. Panic hit Nia's chest. "You used the last one?" "I'm fine, sugar," Denise coughed. "You know how that rain messes with my chest?" Fine. She wasn't fine. But hospitals cost money and so did prescriptions. Nia grabbed her purse. "I'll pick up a new one after my shift." She tried to shake the memory of his voice, low and gentle. "You're safe now." That stormy night was a blur she couldn't afford to think about. He was gone. She was here. Two different worlds. At Aunt Dee's diner, the coffee was burnt and the radio crackled with static. Nia tied on her apron and smiled for customers who didn't look up. Her friend Tasha leaned on the counter, eyeing her with suspicion. "You're glowing." "Spill it," Nia rolled her eyes. "Ain't nothing to spill but dishwater." "Girl, don't lie to me." "I can read a face. That's a something happened glow." "Drop it, Tasha." Tasha grinned. I'll find out anyway." Before Nia could fire back, the bell above the door chimed again, and a man in a navy suit entered with 2 bodyguards. He handed flyers to tables like he owned the place. The logo at the top read, "Reed Urban Developments." Nia frowned, wiping her hands. "What's this?" "Community notice," he said, smooth and rehearsed. "We're redeveloping the Harbor Point district. New condos, safer streets, job creation. You live around there?" Her stomach dropped. Harbor Point, that was her block. "I do," she said, jaw tightening. "And where you gonna put the people already living there?" He gave a politician's smile. "We're working on relocation assistance." Relocation, another word for eviction? Nia snatched the flyer from his hand and tossed it in the trash. "You can keep your assistance." As the man left, Tasha whispered, "You good girl." Nia's pulse thundered. "That's our home they're talking about tearing down." When she turned back toward the counter, the TV above the bar was showing the noon news. Reed Urban CEO unveils $2 billion development. The camera zoomed in on the man at the podium, dark suit, strong jaw, the same eyes that had met hers in the dark of the storm. Xavier Reed. The rag slipped from her fingers. Tasha caught the look on her face and gasped. "Wait, that's him, isn't it?" Nia swallowed hard. "It doesn't matter." That night's over, but deep down, she knew the truth. The storm hadn't ended. It had just changed its form. That evening, back home, she taped the eviction notice from her landlord to the fridge. Angry, shaking, defiant. "They're not taking this place," she muttered. Her family had lost too much already. She would not lose their home, not to him. And as thunder rumbled faintly in the distance again, Nia told herself she'd survive whatever came next, storm or billionaire alike. The pharmacy lights buzzed overhead, harsh and humming. Nia stood frozen in front of the pregnancy test display, her fingers tight around the last $20 bill in her purse. 2 pink boxes, 2 different brands. Her heart pounded in her ears, as if trying to drown out the truth already whispering in her gut. She took the cheaper one. Back home, the apartment was quiet, her mother asleep, Micah at basketball practice. The rain had stopped days ago, but somehow it still smelled like that storm. She tore open the box, read the instructions twice, and locked herself in the tiny bathroom. The seconds crawled. When the lines appeared, 2 pink, bold and merciless, her knees gave out. For a long time she just sat on the floor, chest clutched to her chest, tears hot and silent. Then slowly she wiped her face. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "You're going to handle this. Like you handle everything else." The next morning, she sat in Dr. Yolanda Price's clinic, her palms damp against the clipboard. Dr. Price, warm brown eyes, gentle but firm, studied the chart. "You're about 5 weeks, Miss Carter. Healthy so far. Any plans for the pregnancy?" "I'm keeping the baby," Nia said before she could second-guess it. Her voice shook but didn't break. Dr. Price smiled softly. "Then we'll make sure you and your baby stay healthy." "You have support at home?" Nia nodded, though support felt like a word for people with money. "I'll manage." Outside, Atlanta buzzed with heat and traffic. She passed a billboard on the corner. "Read Urban, building tomorrow's Atlanta." Xavier's face looked down from it, composed, unreadable. She bit her lip, shoved her hands into her pockets, and kept walking. That evening, the community center was packed for the Harbor Point Town Hall. Folding chairs scraped the floor. Fans hummed against the humid air. The crowd was restless. Old tenants, mothers with kids, men with paint-stained hands. At the front stood Simone Caldwell, elegant in white silk, introducing Xavier Reed like he was the savior of the city. "Harbor Point," Simone purred, "will create jobs, safer housing, and economic opportunity for all." "All?" a woman shouted. "After you kick us out?" Applause and murmurs rippled through the room. Xavier stepped forward, calm as ever. "We're not displacing families. We're rebuilding lives," he said, voice even, confident. Nia's fists clenched around the edges of her chair. "Rebuilding? You're tearing us down." Councilwoman Abeni Moore invited public comments. A hush spread. Nia rose, heart in her throat. "My name's Nia Carter. I live at 132 Harbor Street. My family's been there 15 years. Simone's smile flickered. Xavier looked up sharply. "We don't need relocation plans," Nia continued. "We need our homes. We need rent we can afford. You say you're helping people, but people like us don't get help. We get pushed out." Her voice trembled, but her words sliced clean through the air. A few claps broke out from the crowd. Xavier's jaw tensed. "Miss Carter," he said quietly when the moderator nodded to him. "No one is being ignored." "I'll personally review—" "You already have," she interrupted. "You just didn't recognize me then." Gasps rippled through the room. Simone's head turned like a predator scenting blood. Xavier froze, the memory flickering behind his eyes. The diner, the rain, her trembling hands. For a moment the air between them seemed to thicken. Neither spoke. Simone stepped in fast, her heels clicking sharp. "If there are personal matters, this isn't the time." But the damage was done. Xavier cleared his throat. "Thank you, Miss Carter." "We'll follow up." His voice was composed, but his pulse roared. When the meeting ended, reporters crowded him. Cameras flashed. Nia slipped out the side door, head down, trying to breathe. Outside, the night was heavy with humidity and headlights. From across the lot, Xavier watched her leave through tinted glass, fingers pressed against his temple. He didn't know whether to chase her or let her go. Simone leaned in beside him, her tone sweet but razor-edged. You know her? He looked away. Not the way you think. Her smile was all teeth. Then I'll make sure the press doesn't think it either. Back home, Nia stood before the mirror, hand on her still flat belly. I don't know how we'll make it, she whispered. But you're mine. And we'll be okay, thunder grumbled again in the distance. Soft, warning, familiar. The storm wasn't over. It had just changed names. The next evening, the community center still buzzed from the chaos of the meeting. Reporters swarmed outside, hungry for quotes. Inside, Xavier Reed stood in a half-lit corridor, his pulse still thrumming from the shock of seeing her. Nia Carter, the woman from that stormy night. He'd spent a month combing half the city, haunted by her face, and there she was, pregnant, furious, and living in the neighborhood his company was tearing apart. Mr. Reed, the press is ready, Simone said smoothly, tablet in hand, tone clipped. Handle them, Xavier said, his voice lower than usual. I'll be a minute. He scanned the hallway. Through the side door, he saw Nia trying to slip out quietly, clutching her bag to her chest. He caught up with her just before she reached the parking lot. Nia. She froze, every muscle in her back tightening. Slowly she turned. Don't call me that. His heart kicked against his ribs. You disappeared. I looked for you. Her laugh came sharp and humorless. You left first. That morning, there was an emergency call from the office, he said. I didn't mean for you to wake up alone. Didn't mean to, but you did. And now here we are, me fighting for my home, and you standing there with the company trying to bulldoze it. He stepped closer. If I'd known... You didn't want to know, she cut in. You're the kind of man who leaves a note and moves on. The wind picked up between them, carrying the faint echo of shouting reporters outside. He wanted to reach for her, to explain everything, but then she pressed a trembling hand to her stomach. Something inside him shifted. Nia, are you... She took a shaky breath. Pregnant. The word hung in the air like thunder before a storm. For a long moment, neither spoke. Cars passed on the street, engines hissing through puddles. His mind reeled. You're sure? She gave him a look that could cut steel. I went to a clinic, Xavier. I don't need your validation. He took another step, softer now. I'm not doubting you. This changes things. No, she said. It doesn't. I'm not asking for anything. I don't want your money, your name, or your pity. I'll take care of my child. He exhaled slowly. Our child. Her eyes flashed. Don't do that. You have a fiancé, a company, a whole image to protect. Simone and I aren't together, he said. Haven't been for months. Could have fooled me, she muttered. She was standing right next to you tonight, polishing your halo. Before he could respond, Simone's heels clicked against the marble behind them. There you are, she said brightly, but her eyes were knives. Press is waiting, Xavier. And Miss Carter, what a surprise. You certainly made an impression tonight. Nia stiffened. I said what needed to be said. Simone smiled like a cat. Of course, passionate, authentic, but if I were you, I'd be careful. The media loves a good underdog until they find a reason to turn. She held out a sleek folder. Here. For you, Nia hesitated. What is this? An agreement, a confidentiality clause, compensation too, so you can focus on your health. Nia didn't even open it. She shoved it back into Simone's chest. Keep your hush money. Xavier's jaw clenched. Simone, enough. But Simone only shrugged. Damage control, darling. It's my job, she turned, heels tapping like a metronome of menace, and disappeared down the corridor. Nia stared at him, voice tight. See? That's who you are now. People who fix your messes with contracts and checks. I didn't send her, he said. I just want to make this right. Then start by leaving Harbor Point alone, she snapped. He reached out, but she stepped back. You think you can buy everything, Xavier. But not this, not me. She turned and walked away before he could speak. Later that night, back in the Carter apartment, Denise's cough rattled through the thin walls. Micah hovered by her bedside, worry etched across his young face. Mum, you gotta rest, he said softly. I will, Denise wheezed, forcing a smile. Soon as this chest settles down. Nia came in, trying to mask her trembling. I'll call Dr. Price in the morning. Maybe she can help with a prescription plan. Denise looked up at her daughter's face and frowned. You okay, baby? You look pale. I'm fine, Ma, Nia said quickly, tucking the quilt tighter around her mother. Just tired from work. But when Denise dozed off, Nia sank onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. The truth pressed heavy against her chest. She wasn't just fighting for her home anymore. She was fighting for a future that included someone else, a tiny heartbeat she hadn't even heard yet. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Xavier, please let me help. Doctor, housing, anything you need. She stared at the screen for a long time before typing back, greater than Nia, no strings, that's the only way. After a pause, 3 dots appeared, then his reply, greater than Xavier, no strings, just care. The next morning, Xavier sat in his office at Reed Urban Headquarters, his mother's voice sharp in his ear. Do you have any idea what this will do to our reputation? Vivian Reed said. A protest, a scandal, and now some woman from Harbor Point? She's not. Don't finish that sentence, she warned. Handle it quietly. The board won't tolerate distraction right now. He pinched the bridge of his nose. This isn't a distraction, Mother. It's my responsibility. You sound just like your father when he went soft, Vivian muttered. That didn't end well either. The line went dead. Moments later, Jalen knocked and entered, expression neutral. You asked for a background check. Carter family lives at Harbor Point, income below the poverty line, medical debt, no priors. She's clean. Xavier leaned back, eyes closing. Of course she is. You want me to set up a private medical consult? He nodded. Dr. Price. No publicity, no billing. And Jalen. Make sure she knows it's her choice. Yes, sir. That evening, Jalen appeared at the Carter door with a polite knock. Miss Carter, Mr. Reed asked me to give you this. He handed her a sealed envelope. Inside, a letter and a card for Dr. Yolanda Price's clinic, paid in full for prenatal care. I told him I don't need... No strings, Jalen said quietly. He meant that. Before she could respond, he tipped his hat and left. Nia held the letter, torn between anger and gratitude. Denise stirred from her chair, eyes glassy. Who was that? Just someone trying to help, Nia said softly. Her mother smiled faintly. Then maybe let them. But Nia couldn't shake the feeling that nothing about this help came without consequences. That night, Xavier sat alone in his penthouse office, city lights glittering below. He pulled out the ultrasound photo Dr. Price had texted him, a tiny shadow in a sea of grey. His throat tightened. That's my child. He opened his laptop and began drafting a plan. Emergency housing fund, community health program, clinic expansion, not as PR, as penance. Yet deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't business anymore, it was personal. And somewhere across town, Nia whispered to the life growing inside her, we don't need saving. But maybe we're not alone anymore. The night outside was clear, but both of them knew another kind of storm was on the horizon, one that would test everything they believed about power, pride, and love. The hum of medical machines filled the clinic room, steady and soft like a lullaby. Nia lay back on the exam table, one hand gripping the sheet, the other clutching Tasha's fingers tight. The screen beside her glowed blue-white, and there, tiny, pulsing, miraculous, was the heartbeat. "That's your baby," Dr. Price said with a warm smile. "Strong rhythm, measuring right on time." Nia's breath caught. Tasha squeezed her hand harder. "Girl, that's a whole person in there," she whispered, eyes glistening. Nia laughed wetly through her tears. "Don't make me cry, Tash." Across the room, Xavier stood motionless, hands shoved in his pockets, eyes locked on the screen. The flicker on the monitor was smaller than a coin, yet it hit him harder than any business win ever had. The corners of his mouth twitched, half awe, half fear. "Everything looks good," Dr. Price continued, "but you need rest, real meals, no stress." "That means limited work hours." Miss Carter-Nia sat up. "I can't afford to miss shifts." "I'll handle it," Xavier said quietly. She turned to glare at him. "You don't get to handle my life." Dr. Price sensed the tension and smiled diplomatically. "I'll print your scans," she said, exiting the room. Tasha nudged Nia's arm. "Girl, if that man wanna pay, let him. Take the blessing." "It's not a blessing if it comes with strings," Nia muttered, but Xavier's voice softened. "It doesn't." "Not from me." For a moment their eyes met, his steady, hers burning. The air between them thickened with all the words they couldn't say. That night, Jalen's SUV idled outside the Carter apartment. "Reed's orders," he told Nia. "Storm damage weakened your roof beams. The guest house is safer till repairs finish." Nia folded her arms. "I told him I'm fine here." "Ma'am," Jalen said respectfully, "I've seen houses collapse in better shape." "You got a baby on board. This is about safety, not charity." Denise coughed behind her. "Baby girl, maybe just go," she rasped. "I can breathe easier knowing you somewhere solid." Nia sighed. "Fine. But I'm not staying long." The Reed guest house was a 2-story home behind one of Xavier's properties, a bright sunlit place with soft couches and stocked cupboards. It smelled like cedar and lemon, like peace. Nia felt out of place the moment she walked in. Jalen showed her the key card. "Security's tight. Anything you need, call me," Tasha whistled as she helped unpack. "Girl, this kitchen bigger than your whole apartment." Nia rolled her eyes. "Don't get used to it." Still, when she peeked out the window that night and saw city lights stretching forever, something in her chest softened. For the first time in weeks, she slept without fear of the ceiling leaking or the sirens outside her window. 2 days later, the world broke open again, this time online. The diner TV blared, "Billionaire's Secret Humanitarian Act. Xavier Reed shelters pregnant waitress." Tasha nearly dropped a coffee pot. Oh no, they didn't. By noon, reporters had camped outside Aunt Dee's, waving mics, shouting questions. "Nia, are you in a relationship with Mr. Reed?" "Was this pregnancy planned?" Nia froze behind the counter, stomach twisting. She shoved through the back door and called Xavier. "What did you do?" His voice was rough. "Nothing. I never leaked it." "Then who did?" He hesitated a beat too long. "Simone handles all external PR." Nia's heart plummeted. "Of course she does." By the time she reached the guest house, paparazzi had trailed her car. Jalen stepped in, blocking cameras, ushering her inside. "Stay off social media," he said. "We're working on cleanup." Nia's phone buzzed again, a headline screenshot from Tasha. "Cinderella of the projects sparks corporate compassion debate." She threw the phone onto the couch. "They turned my life into a charity story." That night, Xavier showed up at her door, exhaustion written across his face. "I'm sorry. I didn't sign off on that." "Doesn't matter," she said coldly. "It's done." He raked a hand through his hair. I shut down the diner temporarily. Paid everyone's wages till it reopens. Her head snapped up. You what? They were harassing your co-workers, Nia. This isn't their fight. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him stop fixing things in the way only billionaires could. But her anger faltered when she saw how tired he looked. For the first time, he wasn't composed. He was human. Why are you doing all this? She whispered. Because I want to, he said simply. Because you and that baby matter. Her breath caught. The truth in his tone scared her more than any storm ever had. Days later, Dr. Price called. Paternity blood work results are back. Nia's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Her world blurred around the printed words. Result, negative. She blinked, reread, blinked again. Her stomach dropped. When Xavier arrived moments later, breathless, hopeful, she met him at the door. It says you're not the father. His face went slack. That's not possible. I don't know what to tell you. She shoved the paper into his hand. Guess we both made a mistake. Nia, wait. She stepped back, shaking. You think I wanted this? You think I'd lie about this? I don't think that, he said quickly, but something's wrong here. She turned away, eyes burning. The only thing wrong was me believing this could ever be real. He wanted to reach for her, to tear up that paper, to tell her it had to be false. But before he could, Denise called from the next room, coughing so hard it sounded like it broke her ribs. Go, Nia said flatly. You've done enough. Across town, at Reed Urban HQ, Xavier slammed the lab report onto Simone's desk. You touched this? She blinked innocently. Of course not. It came directly from the hospital, didn't it? I know you, Simone. She smiled faintly. You used to. Now you're just emotional. He leaned in close. If I find out you had anything to do with this... She stood, cool as marble. You'll what? Fire me? I made you, Xavier. I clean up your mistakes before they make headlines. Not this time. His voice was steel. You're done crossing lines. But as he walked out, her smile curved into something sharp. You can't afford to lose me. Not when the wolves are circling. Darius is already asking questions. His jaw clenched. Let them circle. I've got nothing to hide. You sure? She murmured. He didn't answer. That night, rain started again, the first since the day they met. Nia stood by the guest house window, the test result on the counter beside her. She felt hollow, betrayed by something she couldn't prove. The baby fluttered faintly, and tears filled her eyes. Don't worry, she whispered to her belly. We'll be okay. Even if it's just us outside, lightning flashed over the city skyline, briefly illuminating a figure watching the house from a parked car. Darius Whitmore lit a cigar and smirked. Time to tighten the noose, he muttered, dialing his phone. On the other end, Simone's voice purred, low and satisfied. Let her think she's alone. The more she fights, the more headlines we get. He exhaled a ribbon of smoke. And when the truth finally breaks, Reed's empire will fall. Neither noticed the small security camera in the corner, its red light blinking quietly, recording every word. The storm outside deepened, wind rattling the glass as thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, Nia pressed her palm to her stomach, whispering to the life within her. Hold on, baby. We're not done yet. And somewhere in the city, Xavier Reed stared out from his penthouse window, jaw set, mind racing. He didn't know how yet, but he'd find out who was lying. And when he did, he'd burn down every wall built to keep them apart. The storm was coming again, louder, darker, and this time, it had names. Morning light crept through the blinds, too bright for the mood inside the guest house. The air was thick with silence, the kind that follows betrayal and disbelief. Nia sat at the kitchen table, the folded paternity results still lying untouched beside her tea. The words, "not the father," stared back at her like a cruel joke. Her stomach churned, not from morning sickness but from the sting of doubt. She had told herself not to care what Xavier thought, but part of her had still wanted him to believe her, wanted him to fight for her. Instead, he'd looked shattered, confused, maybe even suspicious. That image wouldn't leave her mind. The doorbell rang. Tasha's voice came through before Nia could move. "Girl, open up! It's me." Nia dragged herself to the door. Tasha stepped in, holding 2 brown bags of food and a storm of words. "You've been hiding out like the world ended. You forget we got a group chat?" Simone Caldwell's face all over the blogs talking about paternity mix-ups and privacy violations. Girl, she dragging your name without naming you. Nia blinked. "What?" Tasha pulled out her phone, scrolling. "Listen to this. Certain individuals have exploited Mr. Reed's generosity with false claims. Our legal team will ensure the truth prevails." Her stomach dropped. "She called me a liar without saying my name." "Exactly." And half the internet believes her. Nia's chest tightened. The room spun for a second. "I have to go home." "Girl, what?" "I can't stay here," Nia said. "I don't belong in his world." "Not if people think I trapped him." Tasha sighed. "At least wait till he clears this up." But Nia was already packing. By the time Jalen arrived at the guest house, the place looked bare. "You sure about this?" he asked, arms crossed. "I appreciate everything, but I can't live in a house paid for by a man who doesn't believe me." Jalen studied her face, steady, stubborn, proud. He nodded once. "At least let me drop you off." She shook her head. "I'll manage." When she reached her apartment, the locks had been changed. A fresh padlock glinted under the morning sun, and a note from the landlord flapped against the door. Eviction notice, non-payment. Nia stared at it, fury burning through her veins. "This isn't legal," she muttered. A neighbor peeked out from behind her door. "They came early this morning," she whispered. "Said it was orders from the management company. I tried to tell them." "It's fine," Nia said through clenched teeth. "Thank you." She walked down the block, her breath shaking, the baby shifting lightly inside her. She sat on the bus stop bench, arms around her stomach. She had nowhere left to go. Her phone buzzed again. Xavier. Greater than, "I know you saw the results. Don't move. I'm coming to you." She didn't respond, but an hour later, a black car pulled up, and he got out, his suit immaculate, his expression wrecked. "Nia, I didn't leak anything." I swear. She stood, folding her arms across her chest. "And what about Simone?" "She's out here slandering me while you say nothing." "I've been trying to verify the results," he said. "Something's wrong." "The chain of custody doesn't match. What does that even mean?" "The sample transfer record's missing signatures," he said. "Jalen found out the lab tech who handled your test was fired last week, paid off by someone." She frowned, a spark of disbelief flickering. "Paid off? By who?" "Darius Whitmore," Xavier said, his voice tight. "He's been circling my projects for months. He wants to discredit me and get Harbor Point pushed through faster." Nia's lips parted. "So this whole mess was a setup?" "I think so. But I need proof." Her body sagged with exhaustion. "You're telling me someone faked a test just to ruin you?" "Not just me," he said softly. "Us." Her throat tightened. Don't say that like we're a team." "We are," he said, "whether you want it or not. I'm going to fix this." She looked at him for a long time, torn between anger and trust. "You can't fix everything with power and money, Xavier." "Maybe not," he said quietly, "but I can protect you." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I don't want to be your problem to solve. She turned and walked away, shoulders squared, even as her heart splintered. That evening, Xavier was at the lab. The director, a nervous man in glasses, shuffled papers, while Xavier's voice stayed deadly calm. You signed off on a test result without a verified chain of custody. Why? I didn't, the man stammered. The technician handled it. Then where's the technician? Quit 2 days ago. No forwarding address. Xavier slammed his palm onto the desk. You realize you tampered with medical evidence that affects a woman's life and my reputation? The man's lip trembled. Mr. Reed, I had no idea. Someone offered money, said it was a confidentiality upgrade. I didn't think. Who paid you? He hesitated, glancing toward the hallway. Whitmore Properties through a shell account. Xavier's eyes went cold. Get me everything you have. Now outside the lab, Jalen was already on the phone. We'll trace the payment. If Whitmore's name's on it, we can tie him directly to fraud. Xavier nodded. Do it fast. She's out there thinking she's alone. Meanwhile, Nia sat on her old stoop, stomach twisting as dusk fell. Micah texted that he was staying late at practice. Denise was at the church clinic. Nia wrapped her jacket tighter. She was about to stand when something shattered against the window above her, a brick, glass raining down. She ducked instinctively, heart slamming. A note was tied to the brick. Leave Harbor Point alone. Her breath came in short, panicked bursts. A few neighbors rushed out shouting. Someone called the police, but by the time they arrived, the car was gone. The officer shrugged after taking her statement. No cameras facing this way. Probably some punk kids. Kids don't write threats, Nia snapped. The officer only sighed and jotted a half-hearted note. That night, Nia couldn't sleep. The baby kicked faintly, a tiny reminder that she had to stay strong. She sat by the window, watching headlights slide across cracked pavement. Her phone buzzed again. Xavier, calling. She ignored it. Then it buzzed once more. A text came through. Greater than, We found proof. Darius bribed the lab. I'll bring it to you myself. Her throat constricted, but she didn't reply. Instead, she whispered to her belly, It's just us now, baby. Just us. The clock ticked slow, the city outside restless. When dawn came, Nia rose and taped cardboard over the broken glass. Her reflection in the window looked different. Harder, sharper, but determined. She wasn't running anymore. Somewhere across town, Xavier stared at the screen showing Darius's payment logs. The evidence was enough to start a war, and for the first time in his life, he didn't care what it would cost. He was done playing clean. He was going to fight dirty, for her. The shattered glass from the brick still glittered faintly on the pavement when dawn broke. Nia swept the shards into a trash bag, her hands trembling. She'd called the police again that morning, but their response was the same. Another shrug, another vague promise to check the area. It was like the city had already written her off. Inside, Denise tried to cook breakfast, though her cough hadn't eased in days. You need to eat something, baby, she rasped. I'm not hungry, Nia said, her gaze distant. She'd spent most of the night staring at the threat note until the ink blurred from tears. Micah slipped into the kitchen, backpack slung over one shoulder. Coach said we got scouts coming next week, he said, trying to sound upbeat. That's great, Nia said softly, managing a smile for his sake. You keep focused on school, okay? Let me worry about the rest. He hesitated, then hugged her tight before heading out. As soon as he was gone, Nia's phone buzzed with an unknown number. This is Councilwoman Arbini Moore, the woman's calm, firm voice said. Ms. Carter, I heard about the brick. I'd like you to come to the precinct today. Give an official statement. Nia hesitated. The police already said, I know what they said, Abeni interrupted. But if you speak on record, I can push this up the chain. It's not just your case anymore, it's the community's. By noon, Nia was at the West Side precinct, sitting across from a weary-looking officer as cameras from local press hovered just outside the door. Councilwoman Moore stood beside her, guiding the interview. I'm not afraid, Nia said clearly, her hands folded tight in her lap. If they want to silence people for speaking the truth about Harbor Point, they picked the wrong woman. Her voice shook once, but the words still landed like strikes of lightning. Within hours, clips of the statement hit social media. Young mother-to-be speaks out after attack tied to Reed Urban scandal. The video spread fast, hashtags rising, comments flooding in. Supporters hailed her courage. Others accused her of attention-seeking, but Nia didn't care about the noise. For the first time since the storm, she felt control return to her hands. Across town, Reed Urban's boardroom buzzed with anger. 10 executives sat around a long glass table, faces lit by the glow of a news feed showing Nia's viral testimony. This is a disaster, one board member snapped. The community's turning against us. Investors are jittery, another chimed in. We warned you about the optics of involving yourself with her, Xavier. Now she's publicly challenging your project. Xavier sat at the head of the table, jaw tight. She's not the problem, he said evenly. The real problem is the corruption inside this deal. Don't moralize, said Harold Chambers, the COO. You're supposed to deliver Harbor Point, not make enemies of our allies. I'm not delivering a neighborhood built on lies, Xavier shot back. From the end of the table, Simone Caldwell crossed her legs slowly. If you care about saving this company, you'll distance yourself from her publicly. Issue a statement, something that clarifies your concern without confirming any relationship. I'm not denying her, Xavier said flatly. I won't. Then you'll lose everything, Simone warned. The board will move without you. Let them, he said, standing. I don't answer to fear. But even as he walked out, he could feel the sting of betrayal brewing behind him. That evening, Jalen arrived at the guest house with a grim expression. The lab confession checks out. Payment trail leads straight to Darius Whitmore's shell company, Frontline Development. I've got proof Xavier took the folder, flipping through receipts, wire transfers, falsified invoices. This is it. I can leak it anonymously, Jalen said. Or we go official. We do both, Xavier replied. Let the press get the scent before Darius can bury it. He looked out the window, city lights glittering like 1,000 tiny judgments. And find out who Simone's been talking to. Her statements line up too cleanly with Darius's timing. Jalen hesitated. You think she's working with him? I think she's playing both sides. And I've had enough of everyone trying to decide what my life should look like. He turned back to his desk, typing furiously. Emails to legal, to council officers, to Moore herself. He wasn't waiting for permission anymore. At the Carter apartment, Denise was folding laundry when she suddenly stumbled, hand flying to her chest. Ma? Nia dropped the dish she was holding and ran. Denise gasped, wheezing, clutching for the inhaler. It hissed once and sputtered empty. Micah, call 911. The boy bolted for the phone. Nia cradled her mother's shoulders, trying to keep her calm. It's okay, Ma. Stay with me. By the time paramedics arrived, Denise was barely conscious. They loaded her onto a stretcher, oxygen mask secured. Nia climbed into the ambulance, shaking. At the hospital, Dr. Price met her in the hallway. We've stabilized her, but her lungs are struggling. Stress and environment aren't helping. Tasha appeared moments later, breathless. I came as soon as I saw your post. Is she gonna be okay? She will, Nia said weakly. She has to be. Hours passed before Denise was moved to a room. Nia sat at her bedside, fingers laced with her mother's. The rhythmic beep of the monitor steadied her for a while, until her phone buzzed again. It was a link from Tasha, #Nia Carter trending. The video of her speech had been picked up by national news. She scrolled through comments. Some called her brave, others called her a liar. Then one headline hit her gut. Anonymous source, paternity test, confirms Reed not the father. Company distances itself. Her blood ran cold. The byline read, Whitmore Media Group. She barely noticed Dr. Price returning until the older woman spoke softly. You can't let this stress get to you, Nia. It's not good for the baby. Nia looked up, eyes wet. They're destroying my life, Dr. Price, and now my mum's in here because of it. Then fight smart, the doctor said. Not angry, smart. You've already got the public listening. Make them see the truth. Nia nodded slowly, a spark returning to her chest. By the next morning, Councilwoman Moore had arranged a press slot for Nia at the community center, a chance to speak again, this time with protection and cameras on her terms. The crowd filled the hall. Moore introduced her briefly, then stepped aside. Nia faced the lights, nerves twisting her stomach. She could see Tasha in the front row, Jalen standing near the door, phone ready to record. My name is Nia Carter, she began, voice steady. I didn't ask to be in this spotlight. I didn't ask for my home to be taken or my story twisted. But since the world is watching, let me be clear. This fight isn't just mine. It's for every family who's been told they don't belong in their own neighborhood. Applause rose, low and building. They can call me names, falsify papers, spread lies, but they can't erase the truth. My baby deserves a home, not a headline. A reporter shouted, Do you still stand by your claim that Mr. Reed is the father? She met the camera head-on. I stand by my truth. The rest will come out soon enough. The room erupted, some cheers, some chaos. But Nia felt lighter walking off that stage. Outside, Jalen met her halfway. That was brave, he said. I'm tired of being scared, she replied. In his car, he handed her a drive. Proof that Darius paid off the lab. Xavier wanted you to have it first. She stared at it, heart pounding. He trusts me with this? He said it's your story to tell. Nia closed her fingers around the drive. Then I'll make sure everyone hears it. Behind them, thunder rumbled again in the distance, low and gathering, and in a tower downtown, Xavier Reed watched her speech live on his screen, a faint smile breaking through his exhaustion. She's not afraid anymore, he murmured. No, sir, Jalen said over the comm line. But Darius is. As night fell, a black SUV rolled to a stop outside the Reed building. Inside sat Darius Whitmore, eyes cold, phone pressed to his ear. She's getting too loud, he said to the voice on the other end. Handle it. The storm clouds rolled closer, heavy and dark, swallowing the skyline. This time the fight was coming straight to them both. The chandelier light glimmered over hundreds of sequined gowns and tailored suits. The Reed Urban Charity Gala, the kind of night meant to repair reputations, was in full swing. Cameras flashed, champagne flowed, and at the center of it all stood Simone Caldwell, flawless in a gold silk gown, glass of champagne in hand, greeting donors like she owned the room. This evening, she purred to the crowd, is about rebuilding trust and community. She glanced across the room where Xavier stood in a sleek tux, looking the part of the untouchable billionaire. Only his eyes betrayed the storm brewing inside him. He hadn't seen Nia in a week, not since her speech, not since the board turned on him. Tonight was his attempt to hold the company together. But across the city, that same night, Nia Carter was sitting by her mother's hospital bed, scrolling through her phone to distract herself from the hum of the monitors. Denise was asleep, her breath shallow but even. Tasha sat in the chair beside her, braiding her own hair and muttering about bills. "Girl, I still can't believe you went viral again," Tasha said. "Every blog got your face now." "I don't even want to look," Nia murmured. "The comments are poison." "Don't read 'em," Tasha warned, but Nia did. She always did. She clicked a new link titled Exclusive. Nia Carter, caught on tape, confesses to trapping Xavier Reed. Her heart lurched. The video was grainy, but the voice was unmistakably hers. "I only wanted him for the money," it said. "Once I'm pregnant, he can't walk away." Tasha gasped. "That's fake. You never said that." Nia's fingers trembled as she replayed it. "They edited it. Before she could finish, her phone started vibrating non-stop. Messages poured in from unknown numbers. Liar, gold digger, scam artist. The video was spreading like wildfire. At the gala, one of the big screens flickered. Guests turned toward it. Simone's voice rose lightly. "Technical glitch, folks. Give us just—" Then the video played. Every phone in the room lit up as the doctored clip filled the display. Nia's face, her supposed confession. The audio echoed. "He'll never know it was all for the money." Gasps rippled across the ballroom. "Turn it off," Xavier barked, but the damage was done. Murmurs became whispers. Whispers turned to judgment. "She trapped him," a donor hissed, "and he's protecting her." Simone pressed her hand to her chest, feigning horror. Oh no, who would leak something like this? But her eyes glimmered with satisfaction. Vivian Reed stood frozen near the back, her pearls glinting under the lights, expression like carved marble. "This is beyond scandal," she muttered. "It's ruin." Xavier's phone buzzed. A text from Jalen, greater than "It's Darius." Upload originated from his server farm. Simone must have passed him the footage. Xavier looked toward Simone, who met his gaze and gave a tiny, knowing smile. Across town, Nia stared blankly at her screen as the clip replayed on the evening news. "This isn't real," she whispered, voice cracking. "I know it ain't," Tasha said fiercely. "They trying to break you." But it was too late. Nia felt the walls closing in. Every headline was her name, every comment a knife. She got up, pacing, one hand over her stomach. "He'll believe it. They all will. I can't." Tasha grabbed her shoulders. "Breathe, Nia. You can't let them win. You already told the truth. That's what matters." But Nia shook her head. "The truth doesn't matter when the lie's louder." Her phone rang again. Xavier. She let it ring. He called again. Finally, she answered. "Don't." "Nia, I just saw it. It's fake. We're tracing it." "You think I care?" She snapped, voice trembling. "You should have known this would happen. You should have protected me." "I'm trying to—" "Stop trying. Just stay away from me." She hung up before her voice could break. At the gala, chaos was still unraveling. Donors left early. The press flooded the lobby. Vivian cornered Xavier backstage, her tone low and sharp. "Do you realize what you've done to this family? The Reed name is being dragged through mud." "I didn't release that video, Mother," he said, "but I won't let you or anyone else destroy her." Vivian's lips tightened. "That girl is poison, Xavier." "No," he said, voice rising. "The poison is the people who think money makes them moral." Vivian's eyes flashed with hurt and pride, but she turned away before replying. Then Simone swept in, all sympathetic sighs and crocodile tears. "You need to issue a public break. I already have a draft ready. I'm not doing that," Xavier said. "You have to," Simone pressed. "The board's meeting in the morning. If you don't make a statement, they'll remove you. I'm saving your company." He stared at her for a long moment and then, without a word, walked out. Outside, flashbulbs burst like fireworks. Xavier pushed through reporters, ignoring the questions. His driver opened the door. but he waved him off and walked into the cool night air alone. His phone buzzed again. Dr. Price. Mr. Reed? I'm calling from Grady Hospital. Nia's mother was admitted earlier. Respiratory distress. She's stable now, but Nia, she left in a panic. I can't reach her. He froze. What? She ran out after seeing the news report. I'm worried about her. I'm on my way. The drive across Atlanta blurred. By the time Xavier reached the hospital, Nia was gone. The nurse said she'd left 20 minutes earlier, crying, shaking, saying she needed air. He stood in the parking lot, phone in hand, dialing Jalen. Find her. Use the GPS from the drive I gave her. Got it, Jalen said. Signals near the South Side Bridge. Xavier gunned the engine. Rain started to fall again, thin and cold. Under the bridge, Nia sat on a concrete step, knees pulled to her chest, watching the ripples on the black water. Streetlights reflected off her tears. The phone in her hand buzzed again, but she didn't move. She whispered to her belly, I'm sorry, baby. I tried. I really did. Headlights appeared behind her. She tensed until she heard his voice. Nia. She turned slowly. Xavier stood in the rain, soaked, eyes raw. Don't come closer, she said weakly. I'm not leaving you out here. You already did, she whispered. He shook his head. No, not again. He stepped closer, rain running down his face like guilt itself. That video is fake. Darius did it. Simone helped him. I'll prove it, but I need you to believe me. She laughed bitterly. You think I care about proof anymore? My mom's in the hospital, my name's Dirt, and you're on every TV screen in the city. You can't fix this, Xavier. He took her hands, gently but firmly. Then let me stand next to you while it breaks. Her tears fell faster. You don't know how to be broke, Xavier. Then teach me, he said. The sound of sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Ambulances racing somewhere else, like the world didn't care about this tiny, storm-drenched moment. Finally, she sagged against him, sobbing into his chest. For a few seconds, neither spoke. When she pulled back, her eyes were tired but resolute. I can't be your secret anymore. You never were, he said softly, but from now on, I'll make sure the whole world knows it. Behind them, lightning flashed again, harsh, bright, cleansing. It was the moment before the fight truly began. The storm that drenched the city that night hadn't ended. It just moved inward, into the hearts of everyone caught in its wake. By morning, the whole world had an opinion about Nia Carter. Every phone notification, every gossip blog headline screamed her name. But the hospital didn't care about headlines, only bills. In her mother's dim room, Nia scrolled through the online portal. $14,328 due. Her breath caught. She closed the page quickly before Denise could see. The older woman slept, the steady hiss of oxygen filling the silence. Across the room, Tasha snored in a chair, head tilted against the wall, hair bonnet slipping sideways. She'd stayed overnight again, refusing to leave Nia alone. Nia whispered to herself, We'll be okay, somehow. She didn't sound convinced. Back at Reed Urban, Xavier stared at 3 screens full of data. Jalen had mapped out payment trails, server logs, and call records. This is the thread, Jalen said, pointing to a red highlighted entry. Frontline Development wired $50,000 to a lab tech the same week the paternity test was processed. Another $20,000 to a PR consultant, Simone's old contact. Xavier leaned forward. And this connects directly to Darius? Indirectly. But it's enough to open an investigation if we leak it right. Xavier exhaled slowly. Then we leak it. Jalen frowned. You sure? This'll blow everything wide open. Board'll turn on you for real. I already lost them, Xavier said. I'm not losing her too. He turned to the window where rain streaked down the glass. And Jalen, keep an eye on her apartment. Someone threatened her before. I don't trust that's over. You got it, Jalen said, pocketing his gun before heading out. 2 nights later, Nia sat on the salon's backroom floor with a stack of envelopes, final notices, hospital bills, and letters stamped urgent. The salon smelled like coconut oil and cheap incense. Tasha was folding towels in the next room. You sure you want to stay here, girl? I got space at my cousin's place in Decatur. I can't keep running, Nia said. I need to figure this out myself. Her voice cracked on the last word. She pressed her hands to her stomach. If I'm gonna raise this baby, I can't do it on fear. Tasha peeked around the corner. Then let's fight smart. You got Councilwoman Moore's number? Yeah. Good. Call her. You've got proof now, right? Nia hesitated. The flash drive Jalen had given her sat on the counter, gleaming under the yellow light. Yeah, she said. I've got proof. That night, she called Councilwoman Moore. When the line picked up, Abini's calm voice steadied her. I've seen your story, Miss Carter. You've handled yourself with grace. If you've got evidence, I can get it to the right journalists, ones who won't twist it. I do, Nia said. A confession, a trail of payments. Then let's meet tomorrow morning. City Records office. Bring the drive and I'll bring a reporter I trust. Okay, Nia said. Thank you. She hung up, hope flickering for the first time in weeks. Across town, Xavier was on the phone with his mother. You're reckless, Vivian said, her tone sharper than usual. You've dragged this family through enough. I'm not apologizing for doing what's right. Doing what's right doesn't mean destroying yourself in the process, she said quietly. I watched your father lose everything because he believed integrity would protect him. It doesn't. This isn't about me anymore, he said. It's about a woman they tried to bury. I'm not letting that happen. Vivian sighed, a rare softness cracking through her mask. You're more like him than you realize. Maybe, Xavier said, but this time we finish the fight. Morning light bled into the city the next day, bright but cold. Nia arrived at the records office, clutching the flash drive like it was gold. Councilwoman Moore greeted her with a reassuring smile and a young man with a press badge around his neck. This is Miles from the Atlanta Tribune, Moore said. He's independent. You can trust him. Nia nodded. I just want the truth out there. They settled at a conference table. Miles opened his laptop, connecting the drive. You mind if I record this for accuracy? Go ahead. He played the audio first, the one Jalen had extracted. Darius's voice came through, rough, smug, undeniable. Greater than, pay the tech whatever he wants. Reed's too clean. Need to dirty him up before permits clear. Nia's pulse quickened. The sound of her enemy's voice gave shape to all her pain. Miles leaned forward. This is solid. If we verify the metadata, it's enough to open a federal inquiry. You could bring down half the city's development board with this. Nia looked at Councilwoman Moore, who nodded slowly. You understand what happens when this goes public. Nia exhaled. Let it. Meanwhile, Xavier sat in his office when his assistant burst in. Sir, someone leaked the Harbor Point documents. It's everywhere. News outlets, blogs, Twitter. Everyone's calling. He looked up sharply. Who leaked it? We don't know yet, but Councilwoman Moore's name is trending with Nia Carter's. He blinked once, then smiled faintly. Good. Sir, the board... Let them panic, he said. Truth's finally louder than the lies. But even as he said it, his phone vibrated. Simone Caldwell. He answered. You think this changes anything? She hissed. Darius isn't finished. You made enemies you can't control. Then tell your partner to start packing, he said coldly. His empire just cracked. Don't be naive, Xavier. He plays dirty. So do I. He hung up. That night, Nia returned home to find the lights off. The street was unusually quiet. She hesitated at the door, key in hand. Then she heard it, the faint sound of footsteps behind her. "Jalen?" she called softly. No answer. A dark figure shifted near the alley. She tightened her grip on her phone. "Who's there?" Before she could move, a shadow darted out, slamming into her shoulder. Her phone clattered to the ground. Then headlights flashed. "Hey!" Jalen's voice boomed as he leapt from his SUV, gun drawn. The shadow bolted. Tires screeched, but the car sped away. Jalen reached her side. "You okay?" I think so," she said, shaking. He looked at the dented car door. "They're watching you." "Probably Darius's men." "I can't live like this," she whispered. "You won't have to." "We've got him cornered now. One more move and he's done." She glanced down, breathing heavy, one hand on her stomach. "I just want my baby safe." Jalen nodded. "We'll make sure of that." Across town, Darius sat in his penthouse, staring at a dozen screens showing live news broadcasts. His name was everywhere. His phone buzzed with calls he ignored. Finally, he answered one. "What do you want, Simone?" "Damage control," she said through clenched teeth. "You went too far." "Too far? I'm cleaning up what you started," he growled. "You promised control." "Now Reed's about to bury both of us." Darius smirked. "Let him try." He hung up and turned to his aide. "Move up the demolition." "We start tonight, before any injunction hits." The aide hesitated. "That building still has people in it." "Then clear it." "I don't care how." Midnight crept across Atlanta. In her small room, Nia couldn't sleep. Something heavy pressed against her chest, a feeling she couldn't name, only sense. She went to the window. A crane loomed far off in the distance, lights flashing red against the dark. Her neighborhood. Her stomach twisted. She grabbed her jacket, waking Tasha with a start. "What are you doing?" "Something's wrong," Nia said. "They're moving tonight." "Nia, wait!" But Nia was already out the door, her breath fogging in the cold air, heart pounding with one single thought. Not again. They won't take my home again. The night air was sharp, filled with the metallic scent of rain-soaked concrete. The city was asleep, but somewhere across the skyline, bulldozers hummed like beasts waking early. Nia ran, her sneakers slapping the wet pavement, breath ragged. She followed the glow of construction lights that shouldn't have been on at midnight. The Harbor Point site loomed ahead. Cranes, excavators, men in reflective vests moving like shadows. "Hey!" she shouted, voice cutting through the noise. "You can't be here. There's no clearance." A foreman turned. His eyes went wide when he recognized her. "Get her out of here!" Two workers started toward her, but before they could reach her, another voice rang out behind them. "Step back!" Xavier. He strode through the fog, Jalen at his side, both men soaked from the drizzle. "What the hell is this?" Xavier demanded. The foreman hesitated. "Mr. Whitmore said we had the go-ahead. Demo starts tonight. Over my dead body," Xavier snapped. He pulled his phone from his pocket. "I've got an injunction filed at City Hall. You're violating state code." The man hesitated, but the bulldozer still revved. Orders came from higher up. Xavier stepped forward, muscles tense. "You tell your boss the site's shut down until I say otherwise." The foreman shifted, uneasy. "Sir, you don't understand." Then the explosion hit. A sudden roar, a bloom of orange fire near the northeast corner of the site. The ground shook, debris flying. Nia screamed, ducking behind a barrier. Jalen grabbed her, covering her head as a rain of sparks fell. "Back up!" he shouted. "That's not demo, it's arson!" Smoke billowed thick and fast. A second explosion cracked the night. People scattered, running toward the gates. Through the haze, Nia saw movement. someone small, trapped inside the half-standing building next door. "Micah!" she gasped. Her little brother's voice echoed faintly through the smoke. She didn't think. She ran. "Nia, stop!" Xavier shouted, sprinting after her. But she was already inside the structure, coughing from the heat, eyes stinging. Flames licked up the walls, hungry and fast. "Micah!" she called. "Baby, answer me!" "I'm here!" his voice cried from the stairwell. "I can't get out!" She followed the sound, heart hammering. The stairs creaked under her weight, fire crawling closer. She found him at the third-floor landing, clutching his backpack, eyes wide with fear. "Come on," she said, grabbing his arm. "We have to move." The stairs behind them cracked, smoke filled the air. She pulled her shirt over his mouth. "Stay low!" "Follow me." A beam crashed near them, showering sparks. Then Xavier burst through the haze, coughing but relentless. "Nia! Here!" she shouted. He reached them, eyes wild. "We're going now!" He scooped Micah into his arms, covering him with his jacket. Nia followed, shielding her stomach with one hand as they fought their way back down. "Xavier!" she screamed as another beam fell, separating them. "Go!" "I'll find another way out," he yelled, but she wouldn't leave. She crawled under debris, ignoring the sting of smoke, until she saw him again through the haze. He was limping, Micah still in his arms. "Give him to me," she cried, reaching through the flames. He hesitated, then passed the boy to her. Together, they stumbled toward the exit as sirens wailed outside. Just as they reached the door, the stairwell collapsed behind them with a deafening crash. They burst into the night, gasping for air, as firefighters rushed past. Nia dropped to her knees on the pavement, clutching Micah close. Xavier fell beside her, chest heaving, soot streaking his face. Paramedics rushed forward, wrapping blankets around them. "Get them oxygen!" someone shouted. Micah coughed weakly. I saw a man, in a black truck," he rasped. "He threw something, then it started burning." Nia looked up, eyes blazing. "Darius," Xavier nodded grimly. "He's finished." At dawn, the site was cordoned off with yellow tape. News cameras lined the street, recording every charred wall and collapsed beam. Councilwoman Moore stood before the press, her voice steady. This was not an accident. This was an intentional act meant to silence a community. "We will not be silent." Xavier stood beside her, arm bandaged, gaze fixed on the wreckage. Reporters swarmed him. "Mr. Reed, did you authorize the demolition?" "No," he said firmly. "This was sabotage, and I have proof." He handed the flash drive to a uniformed officer. "Every bribe, every order, every payment. It leads back to Darius Whitmore." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "And Ms. Caldwell?" a reporter asked. He looked straight into the camera. "Simone Caldwell is no longer affiliated with Reed Urban. She'll answer for her part in this too." Across the street, Nia sat on the back of an ambulance with a blanket around her shoulders. Dr. Price crouched beside her, checking her vitals. "You inhaled too much smoke," Dr. Price said gently. "You need rest." "I'm fine," Nia said hoarsely. "Just make sure my brother's okay." "Micah's stable." "Your baby's heartbeat is strong." Nia's eyes filled. "Thank God." Tasha ran up moments later, breathless. "Girl, you scared me half to death. I saw it on the news. I thought—" "I'm okay," Nia said, voice trembling. Then she saw Xavier approaching through the smoke, his suit torn, face streaked with ash. Their eyes met, and for once, there were no walls left between them. He stopped in front of her. "You could have died." "So could you," she whispered. He smiled faintly, a mix of pain and admiration. "You never listen, do you?" She laughed through her tears. "Not when it comes to protecting the people I love." He knelt down beside her, voice quiet. Then let me protect you for once. The cameras were still rolling, but neither of them cared. She looked at him for a long moment before nodding, just once. Okay. Later that morning, Darius Whitmore stormed into his warehouse office, fury written all over him. How the hell did this get out? He barked into his phone. Every channel's running my name. On the other end, Simone's voice trembled. You said you had control. Control? He laughed bitterly. Control's for people who win. You and your billionaire boy toy cost me everything. He ended the call and threw the phone across the room. Behind him, a red light blinked on a small security camera hidden in the ceiling beam. Across town, in a black SUV, Jalen watched the live feed with a grim smile. Got you, he muttered. By afternoon, the police swarmed Darius's compound. The recording, him admitting the arson and bribes, played on a loop. Officers cuffed him as cameras flashed. Nia watched the news from the hospital waiting room, hand clasped around Xavier's. They got him, he said softly. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. It's over. He squeezed her hand. Not over. Just turning outside, the rain finally stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, glinting off the wet streets like a promise kept. For the first time in a long time, Nia let herself believe, really believe, that maybe she and her child had a future beyond fear. And maybe, just maybe, that future included the man sitting beside her. The morning after the fire, Atlanta buzzed like a city holding its breath. Every news channel carried footage of the explosion, the arrests, and Xavier Reed's press statement, but none of them knew what was coming next. At Reed Urban Headquarters, tension clung to the air like humidity. Reporters crowded the front steps, shouting questions as Xavier strode through the lobby. Inside, the board sat waiting, faces tight, anxious. Vivian was there too, her usual calm replaced with quiet worry. Mr. Reed, the chairman began, our legal team advises stepping back. Let the authorities handle this. You've already made your position clear. No, Xavier said, voice steady but hard. Darius didn't act alone. He had help inside this company, and I intend to expose every one of them. Gasps rippled around the table. Simone shifted in her seat, her hands clasped too tightly in her lap. Be very careful with your accusations, she said smoothly. The media's already volatile. A misstep could destroy Reed Urban Xavier's eyes locked onto hers. Then tell me, Simone, how did Whitmore get access to our security codes, or our PR drafts, or footage that only you had clearance to? Her composure cracked for half a second before she smiled thinly. You're lashing out. I was loyal to you. Loyalty doesn't come with a side contract, he shot back. Jalen traced your wire transfers to Whitmore's firm. Don't insult both of us, Vivian's eyes widened. Simone, tell me that isn't true. Simone straightened her back, chin high. You think I'd destroy everything I helped build? Darius offered control. Real influence. You never saw what this company could be without your charity projects and your poor girl redemption stories. Xavier's jaw tightened. You sold people's homes for power. I secured legacy, she hissed. Yours was slipping through your fingers. You mean yours? Before she could respond, security entered with Jalen at their lead. Sir, Jalen said, we've got something. He connected his tablet to the projector. The screen flickered, live footage from an abandoned warehouse. Inside, Darius Whitmore sat at a table with two men, a briefcase open. Foreman's cut, your silence, and the rest for disposal, Darius was saying. Nobody talks about last night, not one damn word. Simone's face drained of color. What is this? Jalen's sting, Xavier said quietly. You remember Jalen? The man you thought you could bribe into quitting? On the screen, one of Darius's men lifted the briefcase. And if the cops ask questions? Darius smirked. Tell them Reed paid you off. Everyone'll believe it. Then flashing lights filled the feed. Shouts, sirens. Cops stormed in, pinning Darius against the table as he shouted obscenities. The boardroom fell silent except for the echo of Darius's voice. This city's built on deals like mine. You just weren't smart enough to hide yours. Jalen ended the feed. Xavier turned to Simone. Game over. She laughed once, a bitter, broken sound. You think this clears you? You're still the billionaire who ruined a girl's life. Vivian rose slowly. No, he's the man who tried to fix what others broke. Security escorted Simone out, cameras flashing as she was led through the lobby. For the first time, Xavier didn't feel anger, just exhaustion. He turned to the board. I'm dissolving Reed Urban's partnership with Whitmore Industries, effective immediately. All Harbor Point assets will be transferred to a new community trust under Councilwoman Moore's oversight. You can't do that without approval, the chairman protested. I just did, he said. Hours later, in a quiet corner of Grady Hospital, Nia watched the press conference unfold on the waiting room TV. Her heartbeat synced with every word Xavier spoke. Reed Urban will no longer profit from displacement, he declared. We will rebuild Harbor Point with its residents, not against them. When the broadcast ended, the room erupted in murmurs. Even the nurses stopped to watch. Tasha clapped her hands. He did it! Lord, he really did it. Nia smiled faintly. He kept his word. Dr. Price approached, clipboard in hand. Your mother's stable enough for discharge in a few days. You can take her home once the air quality's safe. Home, Nia repeated softly, like she was testing the word again after too long. Dr. Price nodded at the TV. That man looks at you the way men do when they've already chosen their forever. Don't run from that, sweetheart. Nia flushed, brushing a tear away. I just need a little peace first. But peace wouldn't last. By evening, the hospital lights dimmed, and Nia was finally drifting to sleep in her chair when pain shot through her lower back. At first, she thought it was exhaustion. Then another cramp hit, sharp, rhythmic. Her breath hitched. Oh no! Dr. Price rushed in at Tasha's shout. She's early, the doctor said. 34 weeks, stress-induced labor. Let's get her upstairs now. Orderlies wheeled her down the corridor. Panic and adrenaline blurred everything. Nia clutched the rail, breathing through the pain. Is my baby okay? Dr. Price's calm voice cut through. We'll keep both of you safe. Just breathe. Nia. At the same time, Jalen was on the phone in the hospital parking lot. Sir, she's in labor. They're prepping delivery now. I'm on my way, Xavier said, abandoning the meeting mid-sentence. He arrived 20 minutes later, still in his soot-stained shirt. Nurses tried to stop him, but Dr. Price waved him through. She asked for him, she said simply. He entered the delivery suite quietly. Nia lay on the bed, hair damp with sweat, eyes squeezed shut through another contraction. When she opened them and saw him, something in her expression softened. I told you not to come, she whispered. And you knew I'd ignore you, he said, taking her hand. Another contraction hit. She groaned, squeezing his fingers hard enough to hurt. He didn't flinch. You're doing perfect. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met. She laughed weakly between breaths. You talk too much. I know. Hours blurred. Alarms beeped. Voices echoed. Time melted into rhythm. Push, breathe, push. Then finally, a cry filled the room. Dr. Price smiled. It's a girl. Nia collapsed back, tears spilling down her cheeks. The nurse placed the tiny bundle on her chest. The baby's skin was soft and new, her cry fading into the rhythm of her mother's heartbeat. Nia whispered, "Ava." Her name's Ava Xavier stood beside her, awe written across his face. He leaned down, pressing his forehead gently to Nia's. "She's perfect," he whispered. "So are you," she said. Later, after Ava was settled in the nursery, Nia lay in her room, half asleep. Xavier sat nearby, watching both of them like a man seeing color for the first time. Vivian entered quietly, carrying a vase of white lilies. "May I?" she asked. Nia nodded. Vivian placed the flowers on the table, then turned to her son. "I was wrong about her," she said softly. "About you, too." Xavier took her hand. "We all were." Vivian looked at Nia, her gaze gentle. "You've given this family something money never could. Humility." Hope Nia smiled faintly. "Thank you, Mrs. Reed." Vivian hesitated, then corrected softly. "Vivian." The older woman leaned down and kissed Ava's tiny forehead. "Welcome to the world, little one. You've already survived fire and storm." Outside, Jalen stood by the window, watching the sunrise bloom over the skyline. His phone buzzed, a message from the precinct. Whitmore in custody. Confession verified. Case closed. He smiled faintly, pocketing the phone. For the first time in months, the city felt still. Inside, Xavier took Nia's hand again. "Rest," he said quietly. "You don't have to fight anymore." She closed her eyes, whispering, "Then stay, so I don't have to do it alone." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. Outside, the dawn broke clean and gold, washing away the ash, the smoke, the ruin. For once, the light didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. Morning sunlight spilled across the skyline, painting the glass towers in streaks of rose and gold. For the first time in months, Atlanta looked peaceful. No news vans outside the hospital, no shouting crowds, no camera flashes. Inside Grady Memorial, Nia sat propped up in bed, cradling Ava against her chest. The baby was small but fierce, her soft breaths warm against Nia's collarbone. Denise sat by the window, knitting in silence, while Tasha scrolled through her phone. Every few seconds, her head jerked up with new headlines. "Girl," she said finally, her voice trembling. "You trending." Again, but this time, "It's good." Nia blinked. "Good?" Tasha turned the screen around. A still shot from the news conference filled it. Xavier at a podium, dark circles under his eyes, tie slightly askew, a storm of microphones in front of him. The headline read, "Xavier Reed cuts ties with corrupt deal, donates land to residents." Nia's chest tightened. She turned the volume up. "Effective immediately," Xavier said, his voice calm but resolute. "Reed Urban Developments will withdraw from the Harbor Point Partnership. All project assets will be transferred into a community trust managed by Councilwoman Moore and the residents themselves." He paused, his gaze steady on the cameras. "We cannot build a future on broken promises. This is not charity, it's accountability." The reporters erupted with questions. Someone shouted about Whitmore's arrest. Another asked about the woman linked to the CEO. Xavier didn't flinch. "The woman you're referring to," he said, "is not a scandal. She's the reason I remembered what this city truly needs. Her name is Nia Carter. She stood for her family when I was too blind to stand beside her, and she's the mother of my child." Nia's breath hitched. Even Denise looked up from her knitting, stunned. "Oh my God," Tasha whispered. "He said your name on live TV." Nia could barely speak. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it echo in her ears. A few hours later, at Reed Urban Headquarters, the building was unrecognizable. Reporters lined the sidewalk. and half the staff hovered near the lobby TV screens. Inside, Xavier walked through the marble corridors with Jalen at his side. "Legal team confirmed Darius's assets are frozen," Jalen said. "Whitmore's pleading out. Simone's disappeared, but she's finished." Xavier nodded. "Let her be someone else's problem. We're cleaning house." When he entered the main boardroom, silence fell. Every executive, some loyal, most not, waited to see how the story would end. "I've submitted my resignation," Xavier said simply, sliding an envelope across the table. "Reed Urban will continue under new leadership. But I'm done rebuilding cities for profit. I'm rebuilding people." The chairman sputtered. "You're stepping down after you've cleared your name?" "Yes," Xavier said, "because the name doesn't matter if the work doesn't mean anything." He turned to Vivian, who sat quietly at the far end of the table. "You always said legacy matters more than reputation. You were right. I just learned what that really means." Vivian didn't argue. She simply rose, crossed the room, and kissed his cheek. "Do it right this time," she whispered. "I will." That evening, he arrived at the hospital carrying a bouquet of soft pink roses and a small folder of papers. Nia was half asleep. Ava nestled against her. When she saw him in the doorway, she froze, half relief, half disbelief. "You didn't have to come," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "You keep saying that, and I keep doing it anyway." She bit her lip, glancing down at the baby. "You told the world about us." "I told the truth," he said, stepping closer. "I'm tired of hiding what matters." Her eyes filled with tears. "You didn't have to blow up your company for me." "I didn't do it for you," he said softly. "I did it because you reminded me who I was before the money. Before the suits, before the fear." He opened the folder and slid it onto her lap. "This is a deed transfer. The apartment building on Harbor Street. It's officially part of the community trust now, and this unit, your mother's, is titled in her name." Nia stared down at the papers, her fingers trembling. "You mean, we own it?" "You do," Xavier said. "Forever." Denise gasped from her chair by the window. "Lord, have mercy." Xavier turned to her. "Ma'am, you deserve peace." "You raised a warrior." Denise covered her mouth, tears streaming. "Thank you, baby." "Thank you," Nia's voice shook. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he interrupted gently, "because family isn't just blood. It's the people who refuse to let you drown." Nia looked at him for a long time, her throat thick with emotion. "I don't know how to trust this," she whispered. "Then start small," he said, taking her hand. "Trust me to keep showing up." Ava stirred between them, tiny fingers curling around Xavier's thumb. He smiled. "Looks like she already does." The next week brought a quiet revolution. The Carter apartment became the headquarters for what the city now called the Harbor Trust. Councilwoman Moore stopped by every day, notebook in hand. Reporters hovered outside, but for once the story wasn't scandal. It was hope. Nia found herself suddenly surrounded by people seeking her out. Tenants, nurses, activists. They called her Miss Carter, asked for advice, took pictures with Ava. It was overwhelming, but beautiful. One afternoon, Moore placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'd like you to serve as co-chair of the Resident Advisory Council." Nia blinked. "Me? I'm not. I'm just a waitress." Moore smiled. "You're the reason we're still here. The people trust you. That's leadership." Nia hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but if I do this, we do it right. No evictions. No more lies." Moore laughed. You sound just like him. A few days later, Nia was invited to a press conference at Vivian Reed's estate. The place looked like something out of a magazine. Ivy climbing stone walls, sunlight spilling across marble steps. Nia felt out of place until Vivian herself came to greet her. "Miss Carter," she said warmly, "I'm glad you came." Nia adjusted Ava's blanket. "You didn't have to invite me." "I know this isn't really my world." Vivian smiled faintly. "It wasn't mine once, either. My husband's money built these walls, but I've spent years trying to figure out how to open them." Inside, reporters filled the ballroom. Vivian stepped up to the podium. Cameras flashed. "Today," she began, "the Reed family is pledging $10 million to the Harbor Point Community Trust. It's time we invest in people, not profits." Applause erupted. Nia felt her chest tighten. Vivian looked directly at her as she continued, voice steady and proud. "And I'd like to thank the woman who reminded us of that truth. Miss Nia Carter. Her courage gave my son a conscience, and this city a second chance." All eyes turned toward Nia. For a moment she wanted to vanish, but then Ava stirred in her arms, and she stood taller. She gave a small nod. When the cameras turned back to Vivian, she wasn't smiling for optics. It was genuine, maternal, real. That night, the guest house buzzed with laughter and warmth. Denise's oxygen machine hummed softly in the corner. Tasha was cooking in the kitchen, singing off-key to Mary J. Blige. Jalen stopped by with barbecue from the community cookout. "Trust me," he said, handing Nia a plate. "These ribs are a peace treaty from half the city." Nia laughed. "I'll take it." Xavier arrived last, still in his rolled-up sleeves. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching the small chaos of family, the baby, the food, the noise. His eyes softened. When he caught Nia's gaze, she smiled shyly. "You look like you just realized you belong here." He stepped closer. "Maybe I finally do." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Nia froze. "Xavier." He opened it. Not a ring, but a pair of gold apartment keys on a chain. "This isn't a proposal," he said softly. "It's a promise. You and your family will never lose your home again." Tasha sniffled loudly. "Boy, you better stop making grown women cry." Nia covered her mouth, tears spilling over. She took the keys, her fingers trembling. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to this. Yes to us." Xavier exhaled slowly, relief flooding through him. "We'll talk about the ring later," he said, grinning. "Maybe," she teased, brushing her lips against his. The room erupted in cheers. Even Denise laughed through her tears. Ava gurgled from her bassinet, as if joining in. Outside, the city hummed with new life. Construction cranes replaced by community gardens, boarded windows by murals. Harbor Point was reborn, one promise at a time. And for the first time in forever, Nia felt her soul rest. She wasn't fighting anymore. She was building. The spring air rolled through Harbor Point like a long exhale after a storm. The scent of magnolia trees mingled with fresh paint and sawdust. What had once been boarded-up streets now buzzed with the sound of drills, laughter, and hammers striking nails. The rebirth of a community was underway, and at the heart of it stood Nia Carter. Ava was 6 months old now, fat-cheeked and bright-eyed, usually perched on Nia's hip while meetings unfolded around her. The community center, once a condemned warehouse, was now a hub of progress. Posters lined the walls. Resident-led design charrette today. Your voice matters. Inside, the residents gathered in clusters, leaning over large blueprints spread across folding tables. Councilwoman Moore led the meeting, flanked by architects who scribbled notes as people debated floor plans and storefronts. "I want a daycare on the ground floor," one woman insisted. "And a barber shop," another called out. Tasha raised her hand dramatically. And a beauty salon, baby. One that ain't in nobody's basement this time. Laughter rippled through the room. Nia smiled, bouncing Ava gently. Write it down. Tasha's salon deserves a front window. Front and center, Moore agreed, jotting it on her clipboard. We're building businesses that belong to the people. When Nia glanced across the room, she caught Xavier watching her. He was standing near the back, sleeves rolled up, tie forgotten, quietly observing the woman who'd changed everything. After the meeting, he approached her, slipping an arm around her waist. You're a natural at this. I'm a waitress who learned to argue, she teased. He chuckled. You're more than that now. You're the reason this place is breathing again. Maybe, she said softly, but you're the one who gave it a chance. He shook his head. You did that the moment you stood up and told me off in front of half the city. They laughed. For once, it wasn't the laughter of survival. It was joy. Later that week, Vivian invited Nia to a small event at the downtown library, a public apology and community pledge ceremony. The moment Nia arrived, she felt the weight of 100 cameras and curious glances. Vivian Reed had always been a symbol of Atlanta's old money, composed, unreachable, perfect. But when she stepped to the podium, she didn't speak like a socialite. She spoke like a woman learning to make peace with her own mistakes. I once believed legacy was built from marble and steel, Vivian began, but I've learned it's built from integrity and people. For years, I looked at communities like Harbor Point and saw blight. What I should have seen was strength. Her gaze found Nia in the front row. And I owe that lesson to one young woman who had the courage to hold my son, and me, accountable. Miss Carter, you reminded us that wealth means nothing if it forgets its roots. Nia swallowed hard, eyes stinging. Applause filled the hall. Afterward, Vivian approached her quietly. I hope my words weren't too much. They were just enough, Nia said. You didn't have to do that publicly. Vivian smiled faintly. Yes, I did. The damage was public. The apology should be too. For the first time, Nia saw her not as an adversary, but as a woman carrying her own kind of guilt. Would you, Vivian hesitated, would you and the baby join us for dinner this Sunday? Just family. No cameras. Nia blinked in surprise. You sure you want me and my noisy crew at your mansion? Vivian's eyes softened. It stopped feeling like a mansion the day my son moved out. I'd like to make it a home again. That Sunday dinner felt like the start of something unspoken. Denise wore her best church dress. Tasha showed up 2 hours early to make sure these rich folks eat real food. And Xavier, ever patient, endured both women inspecting his mother's spotless kitchen. Vivian took it all in stride. When Denise complimented the china, she laughed and said, I've had it for 20 years and never used it. Tonight seemed right over roasted chicken and collard greens. Tasha's doing. The family talked about everything except the past. Micah spoke excitedly about his college acceptance letter from Howard University. Vivian offered him a scholarship from the new Reed Community Fund. When dessert came out, Nia found herself watching Xavier across the table. He was relaxed, smiling, his hand resting lightly on Ava's tiny foot as she kicked in her high chair. Something in her chest loosened. Maybe healing didn't come with fireworks. Maybe it came in quiet dinners and shared laughter. 2 weeks later, Tasha burst into the guest house unannounced. Girl, I got news. Big news. Nia looked up from her laptop startled. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. You've been nominated for the City Renewal Award. They're honoring community leaders, and your name's on the list. Nia froze. You're joking. Baby, I don't joke about plaques and microphones. Before Nia could respond, Xavier walked in carrying coffee. She's not joking. I already got the invite. You did? He nodded, grinning. I might have known before you did. I didn't say anything because I wanted to see this face. Nia groaned, laughing. You're impossible. Tasha fanned herself. And fine. Don't forget fine, Xavier chuckled. You never do. On the night of the awards ceremony, Nia almost didn't go. The baby had been fussy, Denise was tired, and part of her still didn't feel like she belonged in gowns and flashing lights. But when she finally looked at herself in the mirror, simple emerald dress, natural curls pinned back, she felt something new. Peace. Xavier's jaw actually dropped when she came down the stairs. Damn, he whispered. If they give out awards for breathing, you just won that too. She laughed. Let's just get through tonight without you saying something to make the papers. Can't promise that, he teased. The ballroom was glittering with Atlanta's elite, but when Nia stepped to the stage to accept her plaque, the room fell silent. I used to think power belonged to the people with money, she began, but I've learned power belongs to the people who refuse to give up their place in the world. She glanced toward Xavier, then Vivian, then the crowd of residents from Harbor Point who'd come dressed in their Sunday best. This award isn't for me. It's for every family that stayed when everyone else told them to leave. The applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed, Nia smiled, humbled, glowing. Afterward, as they left the ballroom, Xavier leaned down and whispered, You were incredible. She smiled. You proud of me? Always. A month later, Tasha dragged Nia to a bridal boutique. I said I'm not ready, Nia protested, clutching Ava's diaper bag like a shield. And I said you don't have to be ready. You just have to look ready, Tasha insisted, holding up a lace gown. You're trying this on. End of story. By summer, the guest house backyard had become a gathering place. A cookout sizzled under the golden sky. Music, laughter, kids running through sprinklers. Tasha's salon had its grand opening banner fluttering nearby. Micah's college acceptance hung framed on the porch. Nia sat at a picnic table, Ava on her lap, watching Xavier flip burgers with the kind of ease that used to belong only to simpler men. Vivian sipped lemonade beside Denise, the two women chatting like old friends. He's happy, Denise said softly. Vivian nodded. So is she. I didn't think I'd ever see that. As the sun dipped low, Nia looked around, the garden lights glowing, families eating together, no fear in anyone's eyes. Tasha raised a toast with her red cup. To second chances, everyone cheered. Nia leaned into Xavier's shoulder, smiling as Ava babbled between them. Feels like a beginning, she murmured. He kissed her forehead. That's because it is. The music swelled, soft R&B, under a sky streaked with orange and rose. For the first time in her life, Nia Carter didn't feel like she was surviving. She was home. The sun dipped low over Atlanta, turning the sky to honey and rose. Lanterns hung from the oak trees of Harbor Point's new community garden, glowing soft and gold against the twilight. The scent of jasmine drifted through the air, blending with laughter and music. Nia stood at the edge of the garden, heart fluttering beneath the lace of her ivory gown. The dress was simple, no diamonds, no long train, just satin that shimmered when the light touched it. Her curls framed her face in soft waves, and a single silver bracelet circled her wrist, a gift from Vivian. Breathe, Tasha whispered, fanning her with a program. You look like you about to faint, and we not dragging you down that aisle, sis. I'm fine, Nia said, smiling through her nerves. Just can't believe it's really happening. Oh, it's happening, Tasha grinned, and you deserve every second. Soft music floated through the garden. Guests turned as Denise and Micah began walking down the aisle together, both glowing with pride. Micah looked sharp in a fitted suit, the picture of his late father's spirit. Denise clutched her oxygen tube in one hand, a small bouquet in the other, her smile wide and unstoppable. Then, the moment came. As Nia stepped into the aisle, time seemed to slow. The string lights caught in her hair, and every face turned toward her. Neighbors, friends, the people she'd fought for. Xavier waited at the altar under a canopy of white flowers, dressed in a black tuxedo with no tie, his eyes never leaving hers. He looked like peace. When she reached him, he took her hand, his thumb brushing her skin as though anchoring himself. The crowd faded, the music softened. The world was just them. Pastor Joy, a fierce, warm-hearted woman from the neighborhood, smiled at the couple. "We are gathered here today," she began, "not just to join two hearts, but to celebrate two souls who learned that love isn't about perfection, it's about persistence." Everyone chuckled softly, nodding. Nia's vows came first. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. "I used to think love was something that found you when you had your life together," she said. "But you found me when I was broken, scared, and holding everything together with borrowed strength. You didn't fix me. You reminded me I was already whole." Tears shimmered in Xavier's eyes. "You showed me that forgiveness isn't weakness," she continued, "that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open the door again, even after the storm." The guests sniffled, wiping eyes discreetly. Then Xavier took his turn. "I spent most of my life building walls, around my company, my name, my heart. And then you came in, loud and stubborn and impossible to ignore. You tore those walls down, brick by brick, and somehow managed to build something better in their place." He paused, voice thick. "I don't deserve you because of what I've done right. I deserve you because I learned how to make things right." Vivian pressed a hand to her chest. Tasha straight up cried into her program. Pastor Joy smiled through her own tears. "By the power vested in me and the grace that got y'all here today, Xavier Reed and Nia Carter, you may now seal your vows." Xavier leaned forward and kissed her. It wasn't the kind of kiss made for cameras. It was quiet, deep, like a promise that neither would ever face another storm alone. Applause thundered through the garden. The community cheered, shouting their names, waving sparklers as the music swelled. Vivian stepped forward, holding a small velvet box. "This was your grandmother's," she said softly, fastening the silver bracelet around Nia's wrist. "Welcome to the family, truly this time." "Thank you," Nia whispered, "for seeing me." "Thank you," Vivian replied, "for changing us." The reception unfolded under the open sky. Tables glowed with candlelight, laughter echoing through the air. Jalen gave a speech that made everyone laugh. "If you told me 2 years ago I'd be protecting a baby stroller instead of a billionaire's reputation, I'd have quit early." Tasha toasted next. "To my best friend, the girl who used to walk home in the rain and still show up smiling. You turned pain into purpose, and a one-night storm into a forever love story." Nia covered her face, laughing through tears. "You're impossible." Xavier stood and raised his glass. "To Harbor Point, may we never forget where we started, and may every new foundation begin with love." The crowd echoed, "Amen." Later, under the string lights, Nia and Xavier shared their first dance. The world blurred to soft music and the hum of night. "Remember the storm?" Xavier whispered. "That night feels like another lifetime." Nia smiled. "It was. We didn't know it then, but it was the start of everything." "You saved me that night," he said. She looked up. "No, we saved each other." When the song ended, Tasha caught the bouquet with dramatic flair, sending everyone into laughter. Micah filmed it all, promising to post the highlights for the community archives. The laughter, the dancing, the music, it all blended into something timeless. As the guests began to leave, Xavier took Nia's hand and led her up to the rooftop of the guest house. From there the city stretched before them, Harbor Point reborn, lights glittering against the night. He pulled her close. "Look at it," he murmured. "We built this." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "No, they built it. We just believed it could happen." He kissed her forehead. "Then let's keep believing." Fireworks erupted in the distance, bursts of color reflected in her eyes. Ava's soft coo floated from below, where Denise rocked her gently on the porch. Nia turned to Xavier, her heart full. "You know what I realized tonight?" "What's that?" "That love isn't a fairy tale," she said. "It's work. Messy, beautiful, sacred work. But it's the only kind worth doing." He smiled. "Then I'll clock in forever." And under the starlit sky, with the city humming below and the life they'd built around them, they sealed their future with one more kiss. Steady, certain, infinite. The storms had passed, the lights had come back on, and love, real, imperfect, unstoppable love, had finally taken root. The morning sun rose over Atlanta, spilling light across a skyline that finally belonged to everyone again. The Harbor Point neighborhood, once a row of forgotten buildings and cracked sidewalks, was now alive with color. Murals covered brick walls, telling stories of resistance, survival, and rebirth. Children's laughter echoed through the streets that used to be silent. At the center of it all stood the new Carter Community Health and Arts Center. A ribbon of gold fabric fluttered in the breeze, strung across gleaming glass doors. Reporters and residents filled the courtyard, dressed in bright summer colors. Banners read, "Our city, our story, our home." Nia stood beside the ribbon, Ava balanced on her hip. The little girl, now toddling and giggling, wore a tiny white sundress and her father's curls. She squirmed excitedly, trying to reach for the microphone in her mother's hand. "Patience, baby," Nia whispered, smiling. "You'll get your turn." Xavier stood just behind them, holding Denise's arm as she beamed with pride. Tasha adjusted the camera, live-streaming the event, making sure the whole neighborhood could watch online. Micah stood with a group of college volunteers, his Howard sweatshirt bright against the crowd. Councilwoman Moore took the podium first. "1 year ago," she began, "this site was rubble and ash, and one young woman refused to let that be the end of the story. Today we open the Carter Center, not as charity, but as a promise kept." Applause rolled through the crowd like a wave. When it was Nia's turn to speak, she hesitated for a second, looking out at the faces. The people who'd fought beside her, the people who'd doubted her, the people who'd changed because of her. She took a breath and smiled. "When we first stood here, all we had were ashes and dreams. But we built anyway. Because Harbor Point isn't just a place, it's proof that we can start over without starting from nothing." Her voice trembled with emotion. "This building isn't just named after me. It's for my father, who believed in healing people, for my mother, who never stopped stitching hope into everything she touched, for every family who stayed when it would have been easier to leave, and for this little girl." She lifted Ava slightly, making the baby giggle into the mic, "who reminded me that the future is watching how we rebuild." The crowd rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Dr. Yolanda Price stepped forward with ceremonial scissors. "Let's make it official," she said warmly. Together, Nia, Xavier, and Denise cut the ribbon as golden confetti burst into the air. The doors opened, revealing bright murals, classrooms, a small clinic, and an arts studio. Inside, the walls told the story, portraits of community members, photos from protests and town halls, painted verses from local poets. At the center of the lobby, A massive mural depicted a woman standing in the rain with her child in her arms, sunlight breaking through the storm clouds behind her. The plaque read, "Dedicated to the women who turned storms into shelter." Later that afternoon, the celebration spilled into the courtyard. Food trucks lined the street. Children danced to live jazz. Tasha's new salon hosted free haircuts on the corner, her laughter echoing above the music. Nia sat at a picnic table, sipping lemonade as Xavier joined her. "You did it," he said, sliding a hand across hers. She shook her head. "We did it. You, me, all of them." He smiled, looking around at the bustling scene. This is better than any skyscraper I ever built." A few feet away, Vivian chatted with Councilwoman Moore, promising more funding for youth programs. Even she looked lighter now, less guarded, more human. Micah approached the table, waving a stack of flyers. "We're starting a campus chapter for the Harbor Trust," he announced proudly. "We're going to teach other neighborhoods how to do what we did here." Nia's eyes filled with tears. "Your dad would have loved that." "I know," Micah said, smiling softly. As evening settled, the community gathered once more in the courtyard. Strings of lights crisscrossed above them, flickering gently. Xavier took the small stage. "Before we close this day," he said, "I want to share something." He turned toward Nia. "A year ago, you told me love wasn't a fairy tale. It was work. You were right, but I've learned something too. The right love doesn't feel like work. It feels like purpose." The crowd murmured in agreement. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The collective gasp from the audience made Nia laugh through her tears. "Xavier," he smiled, kneeling slightly. "No speeches this time. Just a promise I'm finally ready to make." Inside the box gleamed a simple diamond ring, elegant and understated. She covered her mouth, tears streaming freely now. "You're late," she whispered, laughing. He grinned. "I was waiting for the right address." "Then yes," she said, without hesitation. "Forever yes." The crowd erupted in cheers. Fireworks crackled overhead as Xavier slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her deeply. Ava squealed in delight from Denise's arms. Tasha shouted, "Finally!" loud enough for everyone to hear, setting off another wave of laughter. As the night wound down, Nia and Xavier walked hand in hand through the quiet streets of Harbor Point. The murals glowed under streetlights. They stopped at the one of the woman in the storm, their story immortalized in paint. Nia traced the edge of the mural with her fingertips. "Feels like another lifetime," she murmured. "It was," Xavier said softly, "but I'd live it all again if it brought me here." They stood in silence for a moment, watching Ava's reflection in the glass window beside them, tiny, curious, unafraid. Nia whispered to her daughter, "You were our turning point." Then she looked up at Xavier, her heart steady. "Let's go home." He smiled. "Home," he repeated, as if testing the word. And together, beneath a sky alive with light, they walked toward the community that bore their story. Proof that love, rebuilt with faith and fire, could turn even the darkest night into a new dawn. Here comes the end of the story. If I was able to make your day, comment Mr. Hope you made my day.